It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Yes, everyone. The 41 is the Mic. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, alongside Nick Jacobs, KSHB 41. Blizzard enthusiast Nick Jacobs I think of all the topics that we could talk about, Nick, the last thing that most people want to talk about is probably the Chiefs Broncos game.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to talk about snow, I've driven in ice. We've covered ice the past day or so. And KSHB 41, my employer, was kind enough to get me a hotel room yesterday after work, and because there was no chance I was making it back up to the Northland. Absolutely no chance with the way the highways turned into a skating ring. And then today it wasn't bad when I left the hotel to come here to work at noon. And I mean, I was a couple blocks away and everything, so it wasn't bad. But then, boy, I tell you what. Business picked up, as Jim Ross would say in WWE, about 3 o'clock, and boy, there was they were 100% right. There was some blizzard conditions to where it was coming down hard. And I mean, I've looked at the snowplow has been through here so many times. Like it's been interesting. And I mean, I'll see how my drive is to the hotel. I mean, I got 4-wheel drive, so I think it'll be all right. But yeah, I saw some of the snow drifts outside and everything, and all our scout cans and everything. So it's been an interesting 36 to 48 hours in Kansas City, that's for sure.
Well, hopefully everybody in Chiefs Kingdom has been safe and sound throughout this. And if you're one of our podcast listeners and viewers in Florida or Honolulu, I'm sure you're in great shape right now.
Yeah, I think you're doing okay.
Yep. I have not picked up a snow shovel yet, Nick. I've just been watching my neighbor across the street blow more snow into my driveway. So when I do pick up the shovel, I'll probably feel a little bit like the Chiefs trying to dig out from a 24-0 hole against the Denver Broncos in the second half. But Chiefs had a little bit of the same adventure as you did, because we're recording this Sunday night. They're still in Denver. They're also going to be spending a second night in a hotel, Nick. Not coming back to Kansas City tonight as they normally would because of just the travel nightmare. They're expecting to come back in on Monday when the conditions have improved dramatically. Not an ideal trip, since this team played like a team that spent 6 hours on a plane yesterday.
This team played like a team that just needed to get through what they had to get to the playoffs, and it was definitely a preseason level in terms of kind of scheme and what they did, and there's some parts to it that I was, you're like, okay, and then there's other parts where you're like, yeah, that's not ideal. And the reason I say that is because for a lot of these guys, this was the most snaps they got. They got it against a playoff team who's, they earned their way into the playoffs. They got to face a team that is, earned a right to be in the playoffs. And so for a lot of those guys, this was kind of like the big final exam from what they'd done this year, what the coaches had taught them. Were they listening to what they taught them? Were they executing the technique they've been taught all year? And how were they able to go about that? So for Brett Veach and the scouting department, this was monumental in terms of being able to see where they're at, not just from a practice perspective where they're familiar with the guys, but how do they do against, one, a division rival, and two, a playoff caliber team? And they got a lot of answers. And like I said, some of those were good. Some of those are like, well, they're going to have to add some pieces depth-wise in the offseason.
Yeah, and sometimes numbers can lie. For instance, when I first looked at the box score before I watched the game on a second rewatch in the condensed form, I look at the numbers and I think Najee Johnson had 13 tackles, and I'm like, that's not good. If Nazee's getting 13 tackles, it means obviously there's some plays downfield, probably getting picked on a little bit and giving up some catches. Honestly, you know what? In retrospect, I looked at it and I'm like, actually, Najee was probably cleaning up a lot of other people's work. I don't think he was picked on as much as I think that some would say. And, and on a second rewatch, honestly, Nick, looking at specific positions, I'm with you. There was some good and there was some bad, but I think there was probably a little bit more good in there than most people realize. But I'll venture this. We've talked about this before, Nick, that sometimes there's Chiefs games that comes down to 6 plays. And, sometimes those 6 plays, 3 of them go one way, 3 of them go the other, and ends up being a close game. We've seen some games where all 6 plays go the Chiefs' way, and they pull out a game that maybe they should have lost. I felt like watching this, and certainly on the second replay was just more reinforced. This game probably took 6 plays, really decided it. Every single one of them went the Broncos' way. And some of them were the Broncos' good work. Some just pure luck. I mean, the touchdown to the Vele was just, you can't script that. I mean, that was flea flicker-esque, Nick. You just can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I would say from watching Bo Nix and observing him, when Steve Spagnuolo did bring some pressure and sped him up, he started throwing off his back foot, and they would be in the dirt, or they'd be wide, or he still has those habits there. And against playoff caliber defenses they're going to face, and the Chiefs are one of them, except that a lot of that caliber was on the sidelines today. But when he faces caliber, he doesn't make he reverts to a lot of bad habits, and he believes too much in his arm talent sometimes. When he's a guy who needs his mechanics to be a certain way, needs to have his feet kind of set with him and rotate into it and everything. When he does all those, he throws a really good football. But so for some of those conditions have to be right. But he showcased the legs, like Steve Spagnuolo talked about, and we'd seen multiple times where, with the Josh Allen aspect to it and how he went about that and everything. So, he's really fast. And that's not just based on that game. I'd seen it in other games before, and he can take off. He's got some wheels to him. So there's a lot of promise there, and Denver's got a promising quarterback. So I'm not taking that away from him. Bo Nix is probably going to cause some headaches the more he develops, and the more Sean Payton can get the bad habits out of Bo Nix year after year. But that's still going to take some time before Denver can kind of get to the level that I think they're after. But I have no doubt Sean Payton's selling this game and saying, hey guys, it may not be the Super Bowl champion Chiefs and Mahomes out there and everything, but you still can say you're one of the 2 teams that beat the Chiefs this year. And and you try to sell that to this team, and the Denver Broncos were trying hard. They were trying hard because of the brand on the side of the helmet, and also they wanted to get to the playoffs. So they were a motivated football team, and I'm not going to take that away from Denver.
No, I don't think there's anything to take away. That was Bo Nix played an incredible game, and certainly to be, and this is, I think, this is a compliment to him. It's not a backhanded compliment in any way. He didn't make any mistakes. That's the one thing that last week it cost him against the Bengals. As good as Bo Nix was last week against Cincinnati, he also made 2 or 3 mistakes that absolutely kept him from winning that game. Against the Chiefs, he didn't make any mistakes, or at least the ones that maybe were potential mistakes got away with. That was a heck of a throw to Sutton in the end zone in between 2 defenders. It was a risky throw, but he got away with it because he does have a strong arm. If he didn't have that arm strength, there's no way he gets it through there. And I've seen Mahomes make those throws, so I'm not going to begrudge another team that gets away with those throws. But that was absolutely one of the things that helped the Broncos today, is that there were 0 mistakes from Bo Nix. He was just nearly perfect. You're right. It is worth discussing that the Chiefs did not play 13 of their most important players. Another 5 of some of their most important players played fewer than 4 snaps, including 3/5 of their offensive line. I think Xavier Worthy played 1 snap. Noah Gray played 4 snaps. There's a lot of guys that just did not play. So there's 18 players right there, you could say, did not play the majority of the game. Well, that's a significant part of the team. And this was an opportunity to learn something about some of these Chiefs. Was there anything that you learned today from watching these guys? And right now, I'm just going to exclude DJ Humphries, because we can probably talk about him separately.
Yeah, I would. The offensive line still has a lot of work out of it. Wanya Morris struggled even at right tackle against the speed and talent he was going against on the edge. It wasn't as smooth as it was when he had the fill-in role a couple weeks ago at right tackle. So you get some frustration there. Hunter had a good push at times, so I like part of Hunter's push on the offensive line. Hansen is kind of 50-50. There's some spots where he may get walked back a little bit, may bite on something, and had some hiccups here and there. But Tooney, when he was in for a couple plays, I mean, he showed why he's an all-pro, and they got the opportunity for him and Humphreys to be together on a couple plays. And Creed was in for a couple plays, but offensive line-wise, there's still a lot that, like, you're looking depth-wise, and you're like, there's a handful of things that they're going to have to clean up technique-wise over the years, and they're still going to need to add more O-line depth. And D-line-wise, they had pretty much no pass rush all day long, and that's been a big problem of if those front four pass rush-wise aren't firing all cylinders or they're not blitzing, they just aren't able to get there. So there was questions on the D line that I think they're going to figure out. There's linebacker wise, Cam Jones. I know he had himself a day numbers wise. There's a couple missed tackles here and there, but like he got comfortable as the game went on. And Lynch, who just got here this week, they throw him out there and have him out on a handful of plays. Secondary wise, I know the Chiefs were running, it looked like a lot more base stuff, and they weren't really trying to confuse or rotate around or everything, just kind of get to the spot and, whatever happens, get through it, like a preseason vanilla type of thing. So that's why I'm not as huffy about, well, the secondary didn't do this or didn't do that. I know a lot of veterans are out there, but Steve Spagnuolo and them weren't really trying to push things to a certain perimeter.
Yeah, I think Blake Lynch had 6 tackles. That might be as many tackles as many Chiefs fans as knew he was on the team going into today. So, and I'm glad you mentioned Cam Jones, because that was one that, numbers wise, absolutely stood out. On my second watching, I was like, man, just a couple of missed tackles, just some bad angles. I mean, those are things I think are clean upable for a young guy. But and that was kind of across the board. Really on second watch is that the Chiefs were just really close on a couple of plays. There was one common theme, Nick, that you and I have talked about in the past. That even with the kind of backup team, the B team, the JV team, whatever you want to say today, Chiefs defense just every once in a while completely forgets to cover a running back out of the backfield, especially if they're one staying in the block and then just slips out into the flat, because that's exactly what happened to help them convert that 3rd and 14 to Javonte Williams. He had a couple that he just slipped out after blocking and is in the flat wide open and picks up big gains. This has been something that's bothered the Chiefs all season, though. This isn't a new problem, even with the different personnel.
Yeah, I mean, part of it can be athletic ability and just kind of, having to be mindful even when you're doing drops to kind of at least know where they're at and what angle you're going to have to take if that check down, if they go to them on that check down. So there's that part of it. But yeah, I mean, overall, it just, like I said earlier, the scouting department, if they wanted answers on what they need depth-wise, they got a lot of them, and I'm not kidding when I say it. It's along the O-line, D-line, maybe a little bit of linebacker, and a little bit at cornerback. So that's – and I don't expect these guys to all be playing at a championship level, but today was a day where you got to find out how players could execute individually when it's athlete versus athlete, talent versus talent, and sometimes they got out-athleted and out-techniqued. And out desire, and desire too. There was the Broncos out desires. They were fighting for a playoff spot. They were hungry. Chiefs, some of those guys on there, you're kind of hoping put a little bit better tape together. And so that's kind of where I have a little bummer on some of those. But I mean, because I want to see a little bit more from Joshua Uche, and didn't get to see that as much as I wanted. Felix had a good lockout on that run, and he was able to lock out the tackle and then get the running back bounced out, and he made the tackle, and that showed he wouldn't have been able to lock out like that last year at times. So that showed growth on that front. But then for the snaps I saw him out there, he just didn't make as much impact in the pass rush as you need. So that's why I looked at each guy individually, and I'm like, hey, I wasn't necessarily looking scheme overall because I knew it was going to be generic and vanilla for the most part. But there was just certain times where like I saw the want to and desire, and there's other times where I felt like everybody, hey, let's just try to stay healthy, get what we need to get done, and then move on to the impact we got to make in a playoff run.
Now, I mean, I say this somewhat facetiously, Nick, but let's face it, the Chiefs kind of had 2 goals today. One was for 18 guys not to get hurt, which
Yep.
they got through that because between the 13 guys who didn't play and the 5 that took a few snaps, they're all healthy, so it's all good. They came out of just the one injury to Chamari Connor, which Andy Reid didn't seem to be too freaked out about. The X-rays were negative. Just looks like it could be a muscle injury. We'll see if 2 weeks of rest will give him the ability to be available for that divisional round game. But the other question to answer was about DJ Humphries and if he can be your left tackle going into the postseason. Did you see enough today to be able to make a judgment there, or is it still kind of up in the air?
He's rusty. I mean, there were some plays where he'd bury the guy in the dirt, bury the defender in the dirt. But you saw a lot of rust there, and that's to be expected with how long of a layoff he's had, and he just hasn't had the full season to get through stuff. So, if you're asking me, would I start him in the postseason game? Not right now. He'd be a depth piece that you keep working in practice and keep trying to have him do that part of it. But no, I mean, I'd be going with Tooney and Caliendo. Or if you think that having Tooney at left tackle, having Tooney at left guard will help Humphries, then I mean, you can try it. So, they'll figure it out. I'm not Andy Reid will put the best 5 out there on the offensive line. So that's why I'm not necessarily concerned about that part of it, but you got to figure out a way to make sure you don't disrupt the rhythm and what the Chiefs offense had built from that Christmas Day game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how the case you would make is just, is the group that they have that's worked together for a few games now, because then DJ Humphries was not out there with Joe Tooney today, so that's not any really build towards your chemistry. I mean, he had a couple of bad snaps. I mean, there was a couple of plays specifically that he did get beat on. One of them definitely resulted in the sack. The other one kind of resulted in a hurry for Carson Wentz. Probably some other, obviously, plays that you could say were maybe losses, if not draws. I mean, I could build a case that, hey, based on the fact that Denver's got a really good front, that he held up reasonably well. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Andy Reid and Andy Heck are going to decide between now and the divisional round. And heading into that direction, I mean, could be it's going to be 13 or 14 days with the Chiefs do host that divisional round game. We do now know the playoff field, and it was a little bit of jumbling of the seeds over the weekend. The Pittsburgh Steelers fall all the way to the 6th seed. The Los Angeles Chargers, with their win over the Raiders, move up to the 5, which means they'll be going to Houston next weekend. The Steelers are going to Baltimore for a rematch there. And that means the Broncos, right where they if they were going to make it, knew they would be. They are going to Buffalo. What do you think of those 3 games next week, and how do you see them playing out?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the Steelers are in a tailspin. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. They're in a tailspin. There's something going on in that locker room. The chemistry is wrong, and I got a sneaky suspicion it involves George Pickens, Russell Wilson, and I think there's a player on defense that hasn't been there very long that I think may be causing some frustrations too. And if they, I'll say this, if the other person gets released in the offseason or they part ways and don't, re-sign them or anything, I think you'll have a pretty good indicator of who that third person is. And I'm going to look up to make sure that their contract, let's just say they played for the team that they're going against this week. And I kind of get the vibe that, I don't know, I mean, just some of the way some of those Steelers players that have been there for a while talk sometimes about it. I'm like, boy, there's something there. But, no, okay. So, yeah, that player's going to be around there. Good luck to him. Okay. I looked at the contract. Yeah, he's going to be around there for a little bit. Good luck to him. Oh, so sorry. So the Ravens are coming away with that one. Either the Ravens are hosting a game or they're going to Buffalo. I think Denver will give Buffalo a game, but I think if Sean McDermott goes about it the right way and pressures and really pressures Bo Nix, I think he's going to force some turnovers, do some dumb things, and I think the Bills come out of there with a comfortable victory. The Chargers-Texans game, as long as Justin Herbert's healthy, I just don't see the Texans being able to stop a Jim Harbaugh team. And so in that thing, I fully expect the Chargers to be the team that's coming to Arrowhead in the divisional round. I think that's likely who they're going to end up facing. It'll be a tough physical game, and the Chiefs will. Here's what I'll say: the Chargers' front four is old and slow, so it won't show up in the Texans game. But if the Chiefs have protection right, they use the receivers in the right way, the quick pass game and everything, they should be able to handle it. But the Chargers have a good. I like the Chargers secondary, and there's a handful of guys. I would love for the Chiefs to cherry pick when they hit free agency next year from that Chargers secondary. So that'll be interesting stuff. I just think it's going to be tough for the Chargers in the moment, but I'll be curious to see what J.K. Dobbins can do against the Texans and how he looks. Because having him and Lad McConkey out there the entire time against the Chiefs, that'll be interesting to see. But I also don't think the Chargers have seen the Chiefs at postseason level. So it'll be interesting. So. Yeah, I mean, the way it's looking right now, I think it's going to end up being the Chargers coming to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs, and the Bills and the Ravens taking on each other, and either you get another Harbaugh potential. The angles are you have a Harbaugh Bowl in the AFC Championship. You have the Chiefs. Either taking on a redemption story of the Bills beating them before, or yet another AFC Conference Championship between the two of them, or you get a rematch of the AFC Conference Championship last year. But those are all possibilities. But yeah, it's going to be intriguing. And I mean, hey, if the Chiefs come out on point in the divisional round, I think they can really shut up a lot of critics that are talking and just see this team at a different level. And so, I mean, because even though the Steelers have been on a tailspin the past 4 games, losing 4 in a row, they weren't beaten as decisively in some of those other games like they were against the Chiefs.
Oh, the Chiefs absolutely ripped the soul out of the Steelers on Christmas Day. There's no doubt about that.
They gave them more than a lump of coal.
Yeah, they definitely. I probably dealt the Steelers 2 losses that day, because once the Steelers got beat the way that they did, there was no way that they were going to be showing up against the Ravens. I mean, they had no chance. I mean, and you're right. I mean, that team is just falling apart. I mean. To me, going into this weekend, I felt like the 2 teams I think the Chiefs did not really want to face on their divisional weekend are probably the teams that they're most likely to face. The Chargers, I'm with you. I think they're the team that's going to advance, and they will be the team coming to Arrowhead. I mean, if there's an upset, I think it would be the Broncos knocking off the Bills. I mean, I don't see the Steelers winning, so the Broncos have a fighting chance. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but they're absolutely a team that can, I think, give Buffalo a little bit of a challenge, at least give them a tussle that makes them work for it. But and those are the 2 teams. I mean, I don't think the Chiefs wanted to see the Chargers or the Broncos again. They're probably going to see one of those teams though in Arrowhead, and probably the Chargers in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that would be intriguing if the Broncos did. I'll say this: I actually am really looking forward to seeing the Bills Broncos game. I'm really intrigued by that game and what that could be. And then I'm intrigued to see the Chargers and Texans and how that works out. If the Texans can kind of regain some swagger that they lost playing here on a Saturday at Arrowhead, or if they're just they are where they are at this point.
We did get some interesting news on this team on Friday, though, Nick, with Jalen Watson being designated to return. And I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens. I mean, I can only tell you what I've been told for the last few weeks and months, which is that Jalen Watson had an injury that the Chiefs expected to keep him out at least 12 weeks, if not more, and they weren't counting on him to be back this season. They designate him to return. I mean, we'll see how much of a threat he is to actually return. I'm not a big conspiracy theory, Nick. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy. So I'm not somebody who's going to say, oh, well, the Chiefs just did this, because it's just a reward to the player for working hard, or they want to make some teams think and, game plan for Jalen Watson. I mean, I'm assuming if they've designated him return, it's because they think that he can play at some point. I mean, what could you see Jalen Watson being able to do for this team, especially if he is back to reasonably full strength?
So the question that I'll have down the road here is, can he play in the AFC Championship game? Can he play in the AFC Championship game? Could he play in the Super Bowl if the Chiefs make it? Can he be here? Can he be there for those moments? If he can be there for those moments, even at 80%, I'm not trying to be mean, but I think it helps that defense tremendously, helps that pass rush, helps the secondary overall, and I think it fits guys back into their roles and their places. And it also, with him gone, it forced Jaden Hicks and Chris Roland Wallace to really kind of start to rise, in my opinion, to where you could put them as pieces in the puzzle long term to pair with with Jalen and with McDuffie. When you have those four out there, I think you got a lot of intriguing pieces, and depending on who can get healthy, or who looks healthier now that they're going to get a couple weeks rest. Like if Justin Reed looks like he kind of regained form, because that poor guy's, but you can tell all year that quad, like he was battling through that, and he was doing the best that he could. And just some of the other guys, like Brian Cook, if this upcoming week of not having to play a football game, does that help him get a little burst? But with Jalen, even 80% Jalen, I think, is going to help this defense be able to kind of slow down some receivers, and really, if the Chiefs offense can kind of skyrocket and take off, then the defense can kind of feed off that, and they got a good 1-2 punch, more so than what they did on their Super Bowl run last year.
There was some other news on Sunday, Nick, that I know we're going to get asked. And I can tell by the look on your face, you already know where I'm going.
I think I know where you're going. I haven't got to listen to the full soundbite. I just saw the caption. Because for people that don't know, I've been helping assist in snow coverage and ice coverage, and trying to do our sports and make sure our sports team could get out of here safely, that we had enough time for them to get out of here so that they could get home and get safe, and so yeah, I'll tell you, yesterday and today feels like it's been a week by itself, and that's just the intensity of how everything's been.
And that makes, talking about Tyreek Hill and the crazy things that come out of sometimes Tyreek's mouth, it puts it into perspective, Nick.
Yeah.
But yes, he said he is going to have to open the door about possibly leaving the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins just restructured his contract. He said, there's a lot of things that I need to reassess about my career. I just got to do what's best for me and my family, whether that's here or wherever the case may be. I'm finna open the door for myself. I'm out, bro. It was great playing here, but at the end of the day, I got to do what's best for my career. I'm too much of a competitor to just be out there. Obviously, that leads to the question, could the Chiefs reunite with Tyreek Hill? And I will first, before you get this opportunity, I will throw out the numbers out there that, of course, there is 50. I think it's $56.9 million in dead cap space that the Dolphins would have to absorb. Tyreek has a $28.7 million cap hit next year. Part of that is an option bonus of $15.9 million that kicks in August 31st, which means that if he was traded, you claimed or anything of that nature, traded would really be the only way, but if you trade for Tyreek Hill, you're picking up that option bonus and a $10 million salary for next year. It's not like just free Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. He's got $28 million due in salary next year and $29.9 million base due in 26. And he's going to be 31 and 32 years old.
Yeah.
Coming off an injured season.
He's a player that, unfortunately, if he were to get traded, the Dolphins are going to have to do that a post-June 1 trade and figure out a way to kind of split that half and half. That's going to be the way they're going to have to do that, because then they say 14.9 according to Over the Cap, and that's going to be the way they're going to have to do that. But I'm curious what's going on with Tua's situation. I know the hip injury and everything, but for Tyreek to have slowly been distancing himself and kind of saying some of the stuff he does, and fans are like, oh, he's trolling and everything when he keeps mentioning the Chiefs over and over again. I'm like, oh, I think he realizes, like, he had a great thing here, and he blundered that great thing. And he has less Super Bowls because of it, and he found out money isn't everything. And so I think that's what a lot of those comments are, and I think that's where a lot of that frustration is. And, you know, I think it eats at him that he's no longer in Kansas City. And whether he comes here or not, that's kind of irrelevant to me for the most part. But I think that's where a lot of that motivation is. And look, he got paid multiple times, but I just Chiefs wise, I don't see them giving up anything draft wise that they that they gave up to the Dolphins.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's part of the problem is that the Dolphins, I mean, especially because of the money they even still due to him. I mean, nobody's going to want to give up a ton of draft capital to get Tyreek out. And the Chiefs are certainly one of those teams. So, right. I mean, if the Dolphins are willing to, part with Tyreek, for a 4th round pick, sure, let's talk. But Chiefs are not a team that's going to say, we'll give you back a 1st round pick that you sent to us. Yeah, we'll do that. No, I mean, Chiefs aren't in that mode. So
right.
We'll see what happens, but I fully expect that the hype machine will take off in the weeks and months ahead.
Tyreek's going to help. Tyreek's going to help bring some gas cans to help with that if he can.
There you go. I'm sure some.
But for him to say what he did publicly tells me it got bad there. And and here's the thing, like you and I talked about going into the year, everything I kept hearing is like Vic Fangio, the way he got ran off by the players and how they didn't like how he held them accountable and everything. And like a lot of players on that Dolphins team went there because they wanted to treat it like, they could play football, make money, but have that beach mentality atmosphere and be on Miami Beach and all that type of stuff. And they found out that some players actually do want to compete. That's not the spot. Like Mike McDaniel doesn't run a tight ship, and I don't think it's going to get better for the Dolphins. And I think Tyreek, probably where he's frustrated is how soft that football team is overall.
No, the players
they don't have the mentality, man. Players run the Dolphins team.
Players run the team.
That's as clear as day.
That is definitely clear as day. Well, it's going to be a quiet week in Kansas City, Nick. It's a bye week. Chiefs don't really have anything planned. Sounds like there might be a media availability on Friday. So you're not going to hear a lot from One Arrowhead Drive this week. You will hear a bit from Nick and myself because we'll have the Chiefs Digest Q&A on Tuesday. I assume we'll try to have a 41 is the mic episode next weekend, right?
We have one every time, but I want to wait till AFC playoffs is done so we can react to all of it.
That would be the plan. So
yeah,
I'm down with that plan. So you're going to hear from us probably Sunday night after all the action is done, maybe Monday morning in your stream. We'll see when it hits, but a little bit of a quiet week in Chiefs Kingdom before the playoffs heat up. And next weekend we'll find out who will be coming to Arrowhead. And I'm increasingly thinking, Nick, that you probably need to clear your Saturday on that divisional round weekend. That might be the day the game is at Arrowhead, but we'll see.
No, I've already got it. I've already got that planned in my head. So don't you worry about that. What I do have, I will say this in terms of Carson Wentz before we get out of here. Carson, like I said during training camp, Carson's a guy that if you use play action pass, I think mechanically he gets into a rhythm and he gets really comfortable. There's a lot of times today where I felt like he was a little bit rusty and wasn't as sharp, a little wide or high in some throws and everything. Part of that's just not having reps, and part of that is just that's his first game experience since preseason. In terms of like that many reps. I know he's been in 2 other games, but in terms of the amount of reps he took, that's the most he's had in quite some time.
Yeah, his clock just seemed a little off a little bit early. And, as far as just getting rid of the football and making some decisions, he held onto the ball probably a little bit too long a couple of times rather than taking some check downs. But I know the guy was trying to make a play. So,
yep.
But if the Chiefs get their wish, it's the last time you're going to see Carson Wentz this season, and Patrick Mahomes will take every snap the rest of the way.
That's the hope. Everybody gets rested up.
Everybody have a great week. We will see you on the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel for the Q&A on Tuesday. And of course, next weekend, we'll be back with a AFC NFL playoff recap and taking a look at the Chiefs and their divisional round matchup.
Yeah, and I'm going to go outside here once we're done with, now that we're officially getting done with this, go heat up my vehicle, try to defrost it, and swipe off all the snow that may still be on there, put that bad boy in 4-wheel drive, and get to the hotel 2 blocks away here from the station. And I'm on standby just in case I need to come back in and help out with some of our snow coverage. So I will, we'll see how things go here, and in a little bit, and then I'll finally get to make my trip, hopefully north, to go back home.
I haven't been on the road yet since the snow started, Nick, so I can't tell you how they are up here. But
don't worry, I monitor everything.
I'm getting a good night's sleep so I can start in on that driveway first thing Monday morning.
Good luck to you, Matt. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Good luck to everybody out there. Take care, stay warm, stay safe, and we will see you later this week.
I go bye-bye in the car now.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.